with Michael Usher.
Good evening. With minutes to spare, the Court of Appeal overturned a ban on today's mass protest in Sydney, giving permission for thousands of people to march in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement. They may have had a legal win to march, but they've drawn criticism for defying COVID caution. No crowds are allowed anywhere else, but this one, while noisy, was mostly peaceful.
In the middle of the city, in the middle of a pandemic, they predicted thousands, and that is what they got. COVID was also on the minds of organisers.
We don't want to get sick, people!
Then news of an 11th hour court appeal giving Black Lives the green light.
This march is authorised. It's authorised.
It took an American tragedy to galvanise the world and Sydney. The Australian perspective, the number of Indigenous men and women in jail and the number of deaths in custody.
It took 40 minutes for my brother to get help. By that time, it was too late.
They killed him over a piece of biscuit. A biscuit!
It was passionate, noisy, laced with solemn moments, a smoking ceremony, and taking a knee at 4:32 p.m. to commemorate 432 Aboriginal deaths in custody. A conspicuous protester was former Homicide Inspector Gary Jubelin, whose two-decade investigation of the disappearance of 3 Aboriginal children remains unsolved. His former colleagues were there in big numbers. Mounted police, general duties, riot squad. There was no violence, but police were a target of anger. But it was police upholding the crowd's legal right to protest. One man held up a sign, black, white, all lives matter. He was not popular here. Jeered by the crowd, arrested and led away by police to cells that were much more empty than anticipated. There was a handshake with police. It was not socially distant like everything today. Nevertheless, a gesture a superintendent felt he could not turn down.
It's great spirit, and you can see the spirit behind us. It's about working with the communities which we've seen.
They marched from Town Hall to Belmore Park. Thousands, different races, some angry, some touched, all united.
It's getting better and better every year. Our crowds are getting bigger every year.
We are not stopping. I don't care about your laws. Don't try to stop us.
When Justice Desmond Fagan banned this protest last night before it was subsequently overturned today, the words he used were, now is not a time to be throwing out our caution. He was referring to social distancing, and although these people have been told to separate into groups of 10, clearly with so many thousands here, that has been next to impossible.
The speeches continued at Belmore Park.
This is our time!
Loud but never violent. A relief for police and protesters, but a terrible sight for health authorities working around the clock for months to stop COVID-19 from spreading.
And Rob Vardy is at Eddie Avenue right outside Central Station. Rob, good evening to you. So what is the latest where you are?
Well, Michael, this has been the only potential flashpoint today. It dissipated fairly quickly. You can see a row of police just behind me, and a couple of hundred metres further up on Central Station, police are ringing this area. After the protest had finished, some 500 protesters rushed onto the street just next to me. Traffic had been allowed to continue at that stage. Then all of a sudden, police, including the riot squad, had to shut it down. Now that is now finished. Fortunately, as far as police are concerned and protesters are concerned, today was a success. They had feared a flashpoint. It did not happen, so there was no violence. Having said which, as much as the protesters are celebrating this victory today, there are without doubt people watching our pictures tonight absolutely fuming that they have been the subject of COVID-19 restrictions, people who have not gone to weddings, people who have not gone to funerals, and will be wondering why there was an exemption here. Obviously, there will be plenty of discourse on that exact topic tomorrow, Michael.
All right, Rob, thank you. Let's go to Peter Fegan, who's at the Sydney Police Centre in Surrey Hills. Pete, good evening to you. All very peaceful. I'd imagine police were pretty happy with the behaviour of the crowd.
Yeah, that's right, Michael. Police commanders say that they are generally happy with the crowd's behaviour tonight. There were no arrests. There was that one man that was taken from Town Hall, but that was for his own safety. A few of the protesters did climb on top of awnings, giving police some headaches, but obviously officers were drawing a fine line between confrontation and keeping protesters and, of course, members of the public safe. Michael, tonight police are still deployed in large numbers as that protest finishes up. Michael?
All right, Peter Fegan, thank you for that. There were rallies also in other major capitals. Tens of thousands stood shoulder to shoulder in Brisbane to support the movement.